All right, welcome to this explainer. I want to start things off right away by asking you a question that might sound completely counterintuitive at first. Is it actually possible to hope too much? You know, we live in a world that is constantly telling us to never lose hope, right? Just hold on to hope, because it's the ultimate positive force. But what if I told you that, under the wrong conditions, hope could actually become a massive psychological and spiritual trap?
Well, today we are exploring a brilliant 13th century framework mapped out by one of history's absolute heavyweights, Thomas Aquinas, in his monumental work, the Summa Theologica. He didn't just see our emotions as random, messy feelings. Instead, he saw them as a highly structured, dynamic journey of the human will. We're going to look at his really profound analysis of hope, the regulatory mechanism of fear, and then two massive pitfalls that can just derail our journey entirely: despair and presumption.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the anatomy of hope, figure out exactly who possesses it, dive into the four kinds of fear, and then explore the abyss of despair and the trap of presumption.
Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, the anatomy of hope, stretching toward the arduous good.
So for Aquinas, hope is not just some fleeting wish. It's not just crossing your fingers and having a vague sense of optimism. He classifies it as a highly specific theological virtue, and he places it directly in what he calls the higher appetite, which is basically our human will. It's a deliberate, forward-reaching movement of the soul. You aren't just sitting there feeling hopeful. Your will is actively stretching out toward eternal happiness. But for this movement to actually qualify as the virtue of hope, it has to meet three very rigorous criteria.
And get this, those three strict conditions are absolutely crucial. First, the object of your hope must be a future good. Obviously, you can't hope for something in the past or something you literally already possess, right? Second, it must be arduous, meaning it has to be difficult to achieve. If it's incredibly easy, it doesn't even require hope. Third, and this is the big one, it must be possible. If it's impossible, your will simply cannot stretch toward it. But because the ultimate good, eternal happiness, is way too difficult for us to achieve all on our own, Aquinas says it is made possible strictly through divine assistance.
Moving on to Section 2, who possesses hope? The state of the Wayfarer.
Now, think about the logical consequence of that definition we just learned. Take those in heaven, the group Aquinas calls the blessed. Do they have hope? No, because they already possess the ultimate good. It's no longer off in the future. Okay, now think about the damned. Do they have hope? Also no, because for them, eternal happiness is utterly impossible. And as we just established, hope requires the goal to actually be possible. So, because those conditions aren't met, literally neither of those groups is capable of hope.
So who does that leave? Well, the crucial point here is that hope belongs exclusively to one specific group, the Wayfarers. And that's us. We are the travelers in this life, journeying toward a goal that is future, arduous, but deeply possible through God's help. Hope is basically the essential fuel specifically designed for the road. Once you arrive at the destination, or once the road is permanently closed, that fuel of hope completely vanishes.
All right, let's look at Section 3, the four kinds of fear, or navigating the shadows. If hope is the engine pulling us forward on this journey, fear is basically the steering mechanism keeping us from driving right off a cliff. Aquinas breaks fear down into this really clear evolution of the human will. First, you've got worldly fear, which is fearing the loss of wealth or bodily comfort so much that you actually turn away from doing what is right. Aquinas says this is always evil. But then we shift into the spiritual realm with servile fear. This is the fear of God's punishment. It's a good start, but it's imperfect. Then comes initial fear, a sort of middle ground where you fear punishment, sure, but you're also starting to fear losing your relationship with God. And finally, at the very peak, we have filial or chaste fear.
To really make the difference between those last two relatable, think of servile fear like a slave who is terrified of a master's whip. You're only avoiding bad behavior because you just don't want to get hit. But filial fear, that is entirely different. It's like the fear a devoted child has of disappointing a deeply loving parent. And here is the wild paradox Aquinas points out. As you grow in love, servile fear actually decreases. You literally stop worrying about the whip. But filial fear, that actually increases. The more you love God, the more terrified you are of being separated from Him.
Which brings us to Section 4, the abyss of despair, the corrupted estimate.
You know, we usually think of despair as just being this incredibly intense feeling of sadness. But for Aquinas, despair is actually a catastrophic failure of the intellect. He calls it a corrupted estimate. Remember how hope requires the intellect to say, hey, this good is arduous, but it is possible.
Well, despair happens when your intellect falsely calculates the odds and tells your will, nope, this is absolutely impossible for you. And once the intellect makes that totally false judgment, the appetite simply gives up. The engine just shuts down completely.
So where does this corrupted estimate even come from? Aquinas traces the roots of despair directly to two specific vices, lust and sloth. Lust, which is this over-attachment to bodily pleasures, quite literally changes your palate. It creates a complete distaste for spiritual goods, making that arduous climb seem totally unappealing. Sloth, on the other hand, is this profound, heavy sadness that just casts down the spirit. It makes the journey look overwhelmingly exhausting. Both of these vices corrupt your estimate of reality, basically convincing you that the goal is either not worth the effort or hopelessly out of reach.
Because of this total shutdown of the will, Aquinas considers despair to be incredibly dangerous. He actually quotes the scholar Isidore on this, saying, "To commit a crime is to kill the soul, but to despair is to fall into hell." I mean, just think about why that is for a second. A crime, or a sin, is a terrible stumble on the path, but you can always get back up. Despair is deciding to permanently sit down in the dirt and refuse to walk another single step. It abandons the movement toward the good entirely, which makes a cure impossible.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the trap of presumption, or falsely claiming the goal.
Now, if despair is the false belief that the goal is impossible, presumption is the false belief that the goal is totally guaranteed without actually doing the arduous work. It is an inordinate or highly unbalanced kind of hope. For example, it's the arrogant belief that you can achieve eternal glory without any merit, or that you can magically receive a pardon without actually repenting. It attempts to entirely bypass the very nature of the journey itself.
And this kind of presumption is incredibly toxic. Aquinas points out that this vice is actually more directly opposed to the virtue of hope than fear even is. Why? Because it directly corrupts the core nature of hope, turning it into a total mockery. And where does it come from? Vainglory. It's an overinflated self-love. When we desire our own goods so much, we foolishly presume that God is simply going to hand it to us on our own terms, completely ignoring divine justice. It's just a supreme act of spiritual arrogance.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we can clearly see that for Aquinas, the human will is just this incredibly delicate instrument. It has to be stretched by hope, steered by a filial fear of losing the good, and heavily guarded against both the paralyzing lie of despair and the arrogant delusion of presumption. So I want to leave you with this final thought to really reflect on today. Take a close look at the things you are aiming for right now. Are your hopes and fears rooted in the actual truth of the journey, or are they being driven by a corrupted estimate of reality? Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.